Hi guys, it's Shell, Sunbury Housewives. Welcome back to another video. If you're new to our channel, thank you so much for stopping by. Hit the subscribe button to see future videos. I post every Wednesday and Saturday. Today, I am making a really pretty feminine, kind of a peekaboo, but not, I don't believe it's officially a peekaboo. But let's get started. So I'm starting with the 20 ounce. I went ahead and prepped it and spray painted it. Rustoleum, I believe it was sweet pea. I use it again later, so I do show it, but I believe it's sweet pea. So I have about 5 milliliters of epoxy mixed up. I'm not going to use it all. And I am just going to put probably about a milliliter and a half on this tumbler because I'm going to use some chunky glitter, and you want to use a little bit more epoxy when you use chunky. But I'm going to use 2 separate glitters. So I'm just making sure that the entire tumbler is covered in the epoxy before I move into the glitter. Once that's done, I am going to use Fairy Tale by Glitter Heart Co. and this chunky Mermaid Pink by Leobro. I found it on Amazon. And I'm going to start with the chunky, and I'm not going in any specific pattern. I'm just sort of tossing it on there. Because I don't want full coverage, but I do want some of that chunky showing through. So it's going to look kind of messy to start, almost like an intentional messy. Some places are heavier, some places not, but that's what I'm doing here. Once I do get done using the chunky, then I will move into the Fairy Tale by the Glitter Heart Co. And I will go over the entire tumbler with this to make sure that I don't miss any spots on the tumbler at all. And it helps the 2 glitters blend. And I do the bottom as well, which wasn't necessary because you're not going to see the bottom anyway. But I epoxied it, so I went ahead and did it. Once that's done, I do roll it in the parchment paper so that any of that chunky glitter will lay down. Now, I'm very gentle when I do this because I don't want to press too hard and have any of that epoxy come up and have to start over. So I'm just being very gentle and rubbing that chunky glitter down. Once that's done, this helps the epoxy not to have to do as many layers. And I only needed to do 1 layer of epoxy by laying that chunky down, which was awesome for me. So once that was done, the epoxy that is, I'm taking this 1/2 inch wide painter's tape and I'm kind of going in like a diagonal pattern. At first, I wasn't sure quite how I wanted to do it. I tried to space it out by eyeballing it and then decided why not just use the spacer method. So here at first you see me just sort of spacing it out by eyeballing it, and then I decide to go right up next to that very first piece of tape that I laid and lay a spacer piece of tape down. And I'm going to do this all the way around the tumbler. Once I get that laid, I will pull up that other piece of tape that I had, that 3rd piece of tape. Well, technically it was the 2nd, but you know what I mean. And move it over to that very next, the other spacer piece of tape. There we go, spit it out. And then I'll pull up that spacer and lay it next to the one I'm laying now. And I will do that around the entire tumbler. I'm not messing with the bottom because I end up cutting it all off because the the bottom's just going to get painted over. Once that's done, then I'm going to go in the opposite direction. At first, I go way too far, so I have to correct myself. But I'm going to do the exact same thing with the spacer and, gosh, I hate that I say all the time, but I'm thinking. So I'm doing the exact same thing in the opposite direction. And what this is doing is basically creating diamonds, which is what I wanted to do. Could have done this with vinyl, but I thought the tape would be easier. So that's what I'm going to do. Place the first one, place as soon as I get it where I like it, because I kind of want it to go in the same direction, not, but the opposite way. The not too far over, just that slight diagonal. But once I get that done, I do put the spacer in, another piece, pull up that spacer, move it, and so forth, and go all the way around the tumbler, just in the opposite direction, like I did before. So that is what I'm doing here. Once all of that is placed on, then I'm going to go ahead and take my craft knife and go all the way around the bottom and cut off those pieces so that the bottom is completely showing, so that when I spray paint it, it will stick to that and not have any sort of design. And then I will also do the same thing at the very top and cut off all of that tape. And I leave it just a little bit below the rim so that they'll leave a whole line up at the top when I spray paint, if that makes sense. You'll see once it's done. But once I get all that tape removed, I decided to use another piece of tape to use as my guide to cut off exactly where I wanted it, so it was even all the way around. So then I pull up all that tape and remove it. So I'm going to place this silicone guard to protect my inside from spray paint, take it outside, and I spray painted it with this, sweet pea from Rust-Oleum. Gave it a good coat, let that dry, and then now I'm going to not remove the tape, but I'm going to grab my Tack. This almost is out, so I added some water into it, shaking it up, and I'm going to paint that all over the tumbler. The Tack is kind of like Mod Podge, but it stays tacky. So anything that, once it's dry, and you know it's dry because it goes clear, because it starts out this white, and then once it's dry, it goes clear. But it's not fully dry, if that makes any sense at all. So once I get it all over the tumbler, I do use my heat gun to help this dry because I'm impatient. And you can let it sit and dry if you want, but I never can because I'm impatient. So I do use my heat gun, and I smooth out as much as possible because any lines that dry is going to show. So once that is done, apparently I'm still painting it on. All right, here I'm using my heat gun. Now that it's dry, I grabbed this Chameleon mica powder. It's a fuchsia, so it's like a white pink flash. As you can see, I pour it out and it's white. But when I grab the fluffy makeup brush that I use, it turns this really pretty pink fuchsia color. And I'm going to put this all over the tumbler and make sure that it is completely covered so that none of that tackiness is still there. And once I get it all on, I just sort of touch the tumbler to make sure that I got all the spots needed. Once I'm sure that everything is covered, I am going to go ahead and start removing that painter's tape. And you can see underneath, well, for now, you can see where I removed the tape, the glitter is showing. And once I start removing the opposite direction, you'll be able to see what's left is what we spray painted and put the mica powder on using the Tack method, leaves a diamond. And then also leaves kind of a diamond with the glitter, but that won't really show until I get the vinyl on. But here I'm just completely removing all of the tape, and I think the glitter with the mica is such a pretty combination, and I'm glad that I chose this color shifting. It almost gave it like a pearlized look, and it's just absolutely stunning. The camera does it no justice at all. But you can kind of see where the diamonds are left, where I've already removed the tape. And so once I get that done, there's no need to seal it. I did go in with just one coat of epoxy to cover up that mica so that we can add all of our lines. I think this is so beautiful. Once that cured, I had cut out the lines in this like holographic metallic vinyl. And I already went and started because I wasn't sure if I wanted to cut out or leave the lines. And I really liked the lines. It gave different sizes of diamonds. And I just thought it was a really cool design element to just leave the lines crisscrossing. So I'm going to go ahead and finish adding the lines. I tried to go one direction and then the opposite direction to kind of crisscross. And my husband ended up coming in to talk to me and distracted me. And I don't know that I necessarily went that way, but I mean, in the end, you really can't even tell anyway. But that was just something for my own mind I wanted to do. I do leave the extras just hanging before I cut anything off, but that was a personal preference. I didn't feel like having to do that, pick up my knife and cut it off, so I just waited till the end. So I'm going to continue adding all of the lines, making sure that each of the diamonds is, the mica diamonds I should say, is completely encased in these vinyl stripes. So here's where I'm cutting it off, right where that paint line at the very top is, so that I have a clean cut and it looks cohesive. I thought about going around the entire top with another stripe just to kind of close it off, but I decided against it because I didn't think that it would look good. And I also cut off the bottom as well. right where that paint begins. So once I got that done, made sure everything was laying down nicely, and I am going to place this. This is the offset that I cut out in the same vinyl, and it just says "Shine Bright Like a Diamond," which I thought was very fitting for this tumbler. I found this on Creative Fabrica, and I cut out this pink in the actual words to go on top, but I'm not going to put that on just yet. I wanted to add a coat of epoxy over all of the vinyl, metallic vinyl first before I do that. But so here I'm just using my transfer tape and putting it on there, making sure that it's got good contact, and then I'm going to peel off the back, and I'm going to find the spot that I am not 100% pleased with. There was like, I don't know, it just looked kind of funky, and I wanted to cover it up. I mean, you really can't even tell, but it's just my own issue. So I find the spot that I want, and I know it's horrible, but I eyeball it and place down the offset down and smooth that out to make sure there's no bubbles, and then peel off the transfer tape. And I do this slowly because I want to make sure that nothing lifts up, since I'm going on top of the other vinyl work. Once I get that done, I do seal this entire tumbler with the Ccdiy quick coat, and I let that completely dry before I put on a coat of epoxy. I did use the Speedy Peedy epoxy to coat this, and it only needed one coat. There's the Ccdiy quick coat. I found this on Amazon. So it's amazing stuff. And days that I can't take it outside to spray paint it, this works perfectly. So once that coat of epoxy was done, I cleaned up the rim, and I'm going to go ahead and place the wording on top of the offset. This kind of gives a little bit of a lift, and a little bit of a shadow. I mean, it's, unless you're really, really looking, you really can't tell. But I thought since this pink vinyl is a little bit thinner than the metallic, I did not want to place it on top of the offset, on top of those lines. So I decided to do it this way. So I just line it up and place it down and make sure that I have all the air bubbles out and take off the transfer tape. And then I seal it again with quick coat just over that vinyl work. Once that's dry, I give it a final coat of epoxy, and this was done. I absolutely love how this turned out. I think it is so different, and it's just so pretty. But this will be available in the website. Everything will be listed in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you give it a great big thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.